You know what you have, and at some point, Stu Skinner and his inability to break out of the identity that he's like carved for himself, I think has to be something that you address.
Pete, you want to talk about Stu Skinner for a minute, so I will just run through a quick little thing to set you up. We had another Avalanche Oilers classic on Friday night. I could not watch the game. I was committed to doing something. I promised I will not watch Oilers tonight. I threatened in a group chat. I'll probably
redacted yourself.
I'll probably redacted myself if this ends up being a good game. I had to run to the bathroom at one point, check my phone. Had a bunch of missed text messages from both of you boys, and famously, Sean doesn't even text us that often. So I was like, "God damn it!"
I mean, I feel like you have to preface by saying we were having a conversation early this weekend about guys on teams.
Oh
Yeah,
yes,
Stuart Skinner was a particular point of conversation.
yes. So suffice to say, I was like, "Dinner's over, gotta run back." And
I had like a little bit of internal turmoil when I was hitting that text chain, because like the worst thing in the world, and it's bad behavior, is like if somebody says, I'm not going to be able to watch this thing that I really care about, and then having like a group text be like, brother, you are missing something crazy here. Like, sucks for you. I didn't know whether or not I should acknowledge it in the text group, but if there was any chance that you could pull away and watch that game, I had to make sure you knew that it was unbelievable.
well, I did pull away and watch that game. No regrets. Amazing. Watch the third period. Oilers fell down 4-2. Stu got pulled after the first period and 3 goals allowed. Oilers, of course, came back because that's what they do against the Avalanche. They tied it 4-4. Leon Draisaitl, couple of goals. Corey Perry, a goal scorer. Pete had said in these
Twice.
texts, like, yes, like, dude, look at who are scoring in this game.
That was my turning point. I was like, okay, Corey Perry scored twice. I have to text.
The goal scorers at that point were Draisaitl, McKinnon, Corey Perry, Makar, all the GOATs.
Yeah, the exact text was all the greatest players in the world are going crazy right now.
Yeah. All the greatest are going nuts. Draisaitl, McKinnon, Makar, Corey Perry.
So a wild finish. Netchess scores late, and Colorado ends up winning. A furious finish that ended in just the basically a delay of game for 20 seconds, and nobody did anything, and the game was just over. Okay, whatever. Congratulations to the Avalanche. Those teams play amazing games against each other. But Pete's takeaway was, can we talk about Stuart Skinner? So, Pete, I'll give you the numbers. .879 save percentage in the first periods this season. He was pulled in this game against the Avalanche. He has struggled against good teams this season. I've got a number on that. But, Pete, first I'll just let you say your piece.
Well, I mean, it's clearly becoming an issue when he starts first periods like that, and it's not a new issue. And my thing is just that you know what you have, and at some point, Stu Skinner and his inability to break out of the identity that he's like carved for himself, I think has to be something that you address, especially knowing, and I'm not saying you have to go out and get somebody that completely changes your goaltending situation, but I think that you do have to invest in insurance, because where the Oilers are right now is like they are positioning themselves to make not a playoff run, make a Stanley Cup run. And if Stu Skinner continues to be a little bit of a liability, especially at the beginning of games, and throw your team off course, you got to correct it. And I just have an issue with Skinner and what he's been recently, early and against teams that matter.
The problem is, in addition to that's going to cost a lot of money, they have roughly $6 million to play with at the deadline. A huge loser in that, if they go out and get a goalie, is very solid backup Calvin Pickard, because he would end up getting squeezed out. And like, what he say fuck me for? I crunched some numbers versus playoff teams this season. If my math is correct, Stuart Skinner has an .886 save percentage. Versus non-playoff teams, he has a .918 save percentage. What I will say in defense of Stuart Skinner, and I'm a big Stuart Skinner fan, but I'm also realistic in thinking he's not like a top goalie in the league. I loved him in the Western Conference Final and most of the Stanley Cup Final last year. I think he's proven he can be a big game player. I think he's also definitely proven that he is a big time bounce back player. He usually doesn't stack horrible stretches, although so far February, not off to a good start. RL, what is your player card for Stuart Skinner look
Can
like?
I jump in first? I just want to go off the Pickard point. And I agree, like Pickard is a fine, serviceable backup goaltender. But given the Oilers situation, I think that what they need is not a fine, solid backup goaltender. What they need is a 1B potential guy.
Yeah, I mean, if Stuart Skinner were a 1B, he'd be unbelievable.
Because you'd only be playing it against non-playoff teams, or mostly playing against non-playoff teams.
However, though, there would be moments. Say you got let's just say the hypothetical 1A here is John Gibson.
Sure, hypothetically.
Say you got John Gibson and he's like fine in the playoffs. I know that for years, especially when Mike Smith was doing his thing, shout out my guy, you rule, brother, love you. People would say if the Oilers just had fine goaltending, they would win the Stanley Cup. I think that if you get someone who's doing a fine job in the playoffs now, you will have a lot of people saying, well, you know who can kind of go off in the playoffs is Stu Skinner, but you just don't know which one you're going to get.
Yeah.
Right, but I guess where I'm at is like you're talking about the fact that he has an A game, but nothing below that, and that is the profile of Stu Skinner. If he has nothing below that, I think that you have to have a better option than Pickard next in line.
Stu Skinner, though, can do on the first period thing. He can do what Jordan Binnington did in Game 7 of the 2019 Cup Final, where you can be shaky in the first period, and if you can just ride it out, just like survive the shaky part. And then you're good, brother. So I don't begrudge people for bringing up a Stu Skinner conversation. I think it's not where I would spend the money. Ryan, where do you fall?
What's his cap hit? It's like not that big. It's like $3 million or something like that.
Yes,
it's low. I think maybe even 2.5,
I think it's in the twos.
Yeah. So like you're getting on the whole, like
2.6.
Yeah, I think you're getting good value for $2.6 million. And I also think like, you ever see that movie Little Big League? And there's all the cutaways to the booth where they're like, this guy's batting .387 on Tuesdays in dome stadiums against left-handed pitchers who's starting. It's a day game or whatever. And I feel like once you're getting into like versus playoff teams versus non-playoff teams and all that kind of thing, like you're maybe slicing it a little too thin. On the balance, I would say he hasn't been good enough that you would be confident in Stuart Skinner. But like, I don't know. I guess my thing is there's like 8 good goalies in the league, and then the rest you're just like, maybe he'll be good this week. I don't know, And so the thing is, what do you have to give up to get John Gibson, who's signed for, I think, 2 more years after this one?
6.4.
Yeah. It's a big number. Like, what do you have to give up to get him? It probably wouldn't be worth it to me. And then besides John Gibson, who is available that you would actually have more faith in than Stuart Skinner? I'm not saying Stuart Skinner's played well.
Yeah.
But I am just saying, like, of your options, I don't know that you're doing better than that.
My argument is that you don't have to find somebody who's better than Stuart Skinner or you have more confidence in than Stuart Skinner. I think you have to find somebody who you have more confidence in being a guy that you can turn to for an extended run over Calvin Pickard.
Sure. Yeah. Like, and like the thing with Gibson is like, he's already platooning in Anaheim, right? Dostal's way better than him at this point.
And that's a point to make too. Like Gibson has not been the John Gibson from earlier in his career in like 5 years.
Yeah. No shit. Like that's the thing is people are like, it was only 4 years ago John Gibson was a .915 goalie. Okay, sure, man.
But I do have some hope, and I think that there's enough of a case to say on a good team that where like he can really be locked in outside of Anaheim.
Yeah,
maybe the fresh start helps.
But again, what does that cost you?
Right.
Like if they're like, we need a first round pick and a prospect, and also we're not eating any money or whatever, then it's like, I don't want to fucking do that. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to know what the market would be. Although obviously, like if Edmonton's looking for something, they're looking for a goalie.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Well, or right D, I think is probably either their first or second biggest need.
Right D, this sounds crazy. Another top 6 guy, if you could get them.
Well, I mean, everybody needs multiple, help everywhere.
We all silly like the mayor.